This podcast episode is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a doctor, and I am not giving medical advice. Peptides and research compounds are not approved to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease unless specifically prescribed by a licensed medical provider. Always talk to your physician or qualified healthcare professional before starting, stopping, or changing any medication, peptide, or supplement. If you have a medical condition, are pregnant, breastfeeding, or take prescription medications, you should get medical guidance first. Use caution, use common sense, and prioritize safety. Welcome back to the Peptide Effect Podcast. Today we are diving into one of the hottest, most talked about, and honestly most fascinating compounds in the weight loss and metabolic world right now. Retatrutide. If you have been anywhere near the peptide community, the GLP-1 world, or the research chemical space, you have probably heard this name thrown around like it is the next big miracle. And in a way, it might be. But today we are going to break it down in plain English. What is retatrutide? Why are people calling it the triple agonist? How does it work? What makes it different from Semaglutide and Tirzepatide? What are the potential benefits? What are the risks? And what do you need to understand before you even think about going down the rabbit hole with this one? So grab your coffee, grab your protein shake, or grab your emotional support water bottle, because this episode is going to be a deep dive. Let's start simple. What is retatrutide? Retatrutide is a research compound currently being studied primarily for obesity, weight loss, metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, and potentially cardiovascular risk reduction. It is most famous for one reason. It targets three major hormone receptors involved in metabolism. That is why people call it a triple agonist. And that is why it is such a big deal. Most people already understand semaglutide, which is Ozempic or Wegovy. That is a GLP-1 receptor agonist. Then we got Tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro or Zepbound. That is a dual agonist. It hits GLP-1 and GIP. Retatrutide is the next evolution. Because it hits GLP-1, it hits GIP, and it hits glucagon. So instead of being a one-receptor drug or a two-receptor drug, retatrutide is a three-receptor compound. That is why people are so excited. Now let's slow down and explain what those hormones even are. Because I know some of you are listening right now thinking, okay, that sounds cool, but what does that mean in real life? GLP-1 is a hormone your body naturally produces after you eat. It helps regulate blood sugar. It tells your pancreas to release insulin. It slows gastric emptying, meaning food stays in your stomach longer. And it sends signals to your brain that say, hey, we are full. That is why GLP-1 compounds tend to reduce appetite. People say food noise disappears. They stop obsessing. They stop grazing. They stop thinking about snacks all day. GLP-1 is basically like a natural appetite control hormone. Now, let's talk about GIP. GIP stands for glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. Yes, that is a mouthful. But basically, it is another gut hormone that helps regulate insulin and glucose. GIP also plays a role in fat metabolism, energy storage, and nutrient handling. In Tirzepatide, which is the dual agonist, GIP seems to enhance the weight loss effect and improve insulin sensitivity even more. And now we have the third one. Glucagon. This one is where things get spicy. Because glucagon is not typically thought of as a weight loss hormone. Glucagon is usually known as the hormone that raises blood sugar. It is sort of like insulin's opposite. Insulin lowers blood sugar. Glucagon raises it. When your blood sugar drops too low, glucagon kicks in and tells your liver, hey, release stored glucose. That way you do not die. Very useful. But here is the plot twist. Glucagon also increases energy expenditure. It increases fat burning. It can increase thermogenesis. It can increase metabolic rate. And it can help mobilize stored fat. So in theory, if you activate glucagon in the right way, while also activating GLP-1 and GP, you can get appetite suppression, better insulin control, and increased calorie burn. That is the magic formula. That is what makes retatrutide so exciting. Because people are not just eating less. They may also be burning more. Now, let's compare it to the two giants everyone already knows. Semaglutide, the GLP-1 only compound, is powerful for appetite suppression, but it tends to cause more nausea for some people. It slows digestion significantly. It can cause constipation. It can cause reflux. And while it does help with weight loss, some people plateau. Tirzepatide, the dual agonist, tends to cause even greater weight loss than semaglutide in many people. It hits GLP-1 and GIP. People often report fewer side effects compared to semaglutide. Not always, but often. And it seems to have a slightly different feel. More fat loss, better glucose control, more consistent results. Now Retatrutide comes in and says, hold my beer, because it hits all three. And in early studies, Retatrutide produced some of the most dramatic weight loss results we have ever seen from a medication in this category. We are talking weight loss percentages that rival bariatric surgery in some cases. That is not a small statement. That is huge. But before you get too excited and start picturing yourself as a lean, shredded Greek statue by spring break, we need to be realistic. Retatrutide is not a magic wand. It is not a cheat code for a terrible lifestyle. And it is definitely not a compound you should play with casually. Because stronger results can come with stronger side effects. And because it is still being studied, we do not have decades of safety data. So let's talk about what the research is showing. In clinical trials so far, Retatrutide has shown significant weight loss outcomes. It also improves A1C. It improves insulin sensitivity. It improves cholesterol markers. And it appears to reduce liver fat, which is extremely important because fatty liver disease is exploding right now. Most people do not realize they have it. They just think they are tired. They think their metabolism is broken. They think they are bloated. But fatty liver is becoming one of the biggest silent metabolic issues in modern society. So anything that reduces liver fat is a big deal. Retatrutide may also have cardiovascular benefits, but that is still being evaluated. Now let's talk about how it actually feels in real life. Because we can talk about receptors all day. But people want to know, what does this actually do to someone? Most people who use GLP-1 style compounds describe a few main effects. 1. Appetite reduction. 2. Food noise reduction. 3. Less desire for alcohol. 4. Less desire for sweets. 5. Feeling full much faster. 6. Some digestive slowing. And 7. Weight loss that feels easier than normal dieting. Retatrutide seems to amplify those effects for many people. Some people report that it feels stronger than tirzepatide. Some people say it feels like they are not hungry at all. And while that sounds great, it can also be dangerous. Because if you are not eating enough protein, not eating enough calories, and not lifting weights, you can lose muscle. You can lose strength. You can lose hair. You can lose energy. And you can wreck your metabolism long term. So yes, Retatrutide may produce powerful weight loss. But the goal is not just to lose weight. The goal is to lose fat. And to keep your muscle. Because muscle is the currency of aging. Muscle is metabolic health. Muscle is longevity. So if someone is using Retatrutide, they need to treat protein intake like a job. They need to strength train. Even if it is just basic resistance bands. Even if it is just walking with a weighted vest. Even if it is just body weight squats in the kitchen while your coffee brews. You need to send your body the message that muscle is required. Because if you do not, your body will absolutely break down muscle tissue. Now let's talk about dosing, because this is where people get reckless. Retatrutide is typically dosed once weekly in research, similar to semaglutide and tirzepatide. And people usually titrate up slowly, meaning they start at a low dose and gradually increase over weeks or months. This is not a compound where you want to jump in at a high dose. That is how you end up curled up on your bathroom floor, making deals with God. And trust me, the peptide community is full of people who have learned that lesson the hard way. When you go too fast, you increase the chance of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, sulfur burps, reflux, stomach pain, and extreme fatigue. And one of the most common issues people report is not even nausea. It is the weird exhaustion. That feeling like your body is heavy, like your energy is gone, like your brain is foggy. That can happen when calories drop too low. or when digestion is slowed too much, or when the compound is simply too strong for the dose. Another thing to know is that retatrutide may increase heart rate in some people. This has been observed in certain GLP-1 and glucagon-related pathways. So if someone already has cardiovascular issues, arrhythmias, or anxiety, this is not something to take lightly. Also, because it slows digestion, it can interfere with how you absorb oral medications, especially medications that require consistent absorption. This is why people need to be careful if they are on thyroid meds, antidepressants, blood pressure meds, or diabetic meds, because you can get unexpected changes. And if someone is on insulin or sulfonylureas, hypoglycemia becomes a real risk. Now, let's talk about the side effects. Because no one wants to hear about side effects, but it is the responsible thing to discuss. The most common side effects of retatrutide are similar to the others in its class: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, stomach discomfort, indigestion, reflux, burping, and appetite suppression so strong that people accidentally undereat. Some people also experience headaches. Some people report dehydration. And dehydration is a big one because if you're eating less, you're often drinking less. And if you are nauseated, you might not want fluids. But dehydration will make everything worse. It will worsen fatigue. It will worsen constipation. It will worsen dizziness. It will worsen headaches. So hydration is critical. Electrolytes matter. Sodium, potassium, magnesium. Not just water. Now there are also more serious potential risks. These include pancreatitis, gallbladder issues, and potential thyroid concerns. Now, let's be clear. The thyroid tumor warning is mostly based on rodent studies with GLP-1 compounds. But it is still something to respect. If someone has a family history of medullary thyroid carcinoma, or men too, they should not mess with this category. Also, gallbladder issues are very real in rapid weight loss. Not just with peptides, but with any rapid weight loss. When you lose weight quickly, the gallbladder can get sluggish and gallstones can form. This is why some people develop gallbladder attacks on GLP-1 drugs. So if someone gets right upper abdominal pain, nausea after fatty meals, or pain that radiates to the back, that needs medical attention. Now, let's talk about why people are obsessed with retatrutide. Because it is not just about weight loss. It is about metabolic transformation. Many people who struggle with obesity are not lazy. They are not weak. They are dealing with insulin resistance. They are dealing with leptin resistance. They are dealing with chronic inflammation. They are dealing with sleep issues. They are dealing with stress hormones. They are dealing with thyroid dysfunction. They are dealing with trauma. They are dealing with emotional eating patterns. They are dealing with blood sugar crashes that make them feel like they are starving. And compounds like retatrutide may help interrupt that cycle. If someone is insulin resistant, they can eat a normal meal and their blood sugar spikes. Then insulin spikes. Then blood sugar drops. Then they feel shaky, hungry, irritable, anxious. And then they reach for carbs. That cycle repeats all day. Retatrutide can stabilize that. And when blood sugar is stable, the brain calms down. When the brain calms down, cravings decrease. When cravings decrease, weight loss becomes possible. And for some people, this is the first time in their life they have felt normal around food. That is why people get emotional about it. That is why they say, "I finally feel free." Now, let's talk about fat loss versus muscle loss. Because this is one of the biggest criticisms of GLP-1 style drugs. If someone loses weight fast but does not prioritize protein and resistance training, they can lose a significant amount of lean body mass. And that includes muscle. That is why some people start to look saggy. They call it Ozempic face. Or Ozempic butt. Or Ozempic body. But it is not really the drug. It is rapid weight loss plus low protein plus no strength training. That is the combo. So if someone is going to use retatrutide, they need a strategy. High protein. Ideally at least 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Or at minimum, 100 grams daily for most women and 130 to 180 grams daily for many men. They need collagen support if they are worried about skin. They need hydration. They need electrolytes. They need resistance training. And they need sleep. Because sleep is when muscle is repaired and hormones are regulated. Now let's talk about stacking because I know some of you are thinking it. Can you stack Retatrutide with other peptides? The truth is, people do. But that does not mean they should. Retatrutide is already a powerful metabolic lever. Adding more and more compounds can increase side effects. It can also make it harder to know what is causing what. If someone is stacking Retatrutide with AOD, tesamorelin, CJC, ipamorelin, growth hormone fragments, or even stimulants, they need to be careful. Because appetite suppression plus increased fat burning plus stimulant effects can push the body too far. However, in the peptide community, some people use supportive compounds. Things like BPC 157 for gut healing. Things like MOS-C for mitochondrial support. Things like NAD-related compounds for cellular energy. Things like glutathione for oxidative stress. And in theory, supportive peptides might help someone feel better while using a strong metabolic compound. But again, this is where it becomes very individualized. And it is also where people need to be honest about their goals. Are you trying to lose weight responsibly? Or are you trying to drop 20 pounds in a month because you have a beach trip? Because those are two different mindsets. And the second one is where people get hurt. Now, let's talk about the psychological side of Retatrutide. Because this is something no one talks about enough. When people lose weight rapidly, their identity shifts. Their relationships shift. Their attention from others shifts. Their hormones shift. Their appetite changes. Their cravings change. And their brain chemistry changes. Some people feel empowered. Some people feel anxious. Some people feel emotionally flat. Some people feel a weird depression. And that can be because food was their comfort. Food was their coping tool. Food was their dopamine. So when you remove food noise, you also remove the constant dopamine hits. And if someone is not replacing that with healthy dopamine like exercise, hobbies, sunlight, connection, or purpose, they can feel empty. So if you are listening to this and you are considering Retatrutide, I want you to think about that. Are you prepared to build a new lifestyle? Are you prepared to build new coping mechanisms? Because if not, the weight might come off, but the underlying patterns will still be there. And that is where regain happens. Now, let's talk about Retatrutide and insulin resistance. This is where it shines. Insulin resistance is basically when your cells stop responding properly to insulin. So your body makes more and more insulin to compensate. High insulin makes fat storage easier. It also makes fat burning harder. It is like your body is stuck in storage mode. Retatrutide helps improve insulin sensitivity, meaning your body can use insulin more effectively. So insulin levels may decrease over time. And that is when fat loss becomes easier. Many people also notice their fasting glucose improves. Their A1C improves. Their inflammation markers may improve. And their energy can improve once they stabilize. Now Retatrutide may also improve lipid markers, cholesterol, triglycerides, and potentially cardiovascular outcomes. But again, we need more long-term data. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Is Retatrutide approved? No. Retatrutide is not FDA approved at the time of this recording. It is still in clinical trials. So anyone using it outside of a clinical setting is essentially experimenting. And that is why education matters. That is why dose titration matters. That is why lab work matters. And that is why working with a qualified provider matters. Because this is not like taking a multivitamin. This is a serious metabolic compound. Now, let's talk about the concept of triple agonists. Because Retatrutide is part of a bigger trend in medicine. The future of weight loss drugs is not just appetite suppression. It is metabolic optimization. It is hormone modulation. It is targeting multiple pathways at once. GLP-1 affects appetite and insulin. GIP affects insulin and fat metabolism. Glucagon affects energy expenditure and fat mobilization. So the triple combination is like attacking obesity from multiple angles. And obesity is not just a willpower issue. Obesity is a hormonal and metabolic disorder. That is why this class of drugs is so revolutionary. Now, does that mean everyone should use it?
No.
Absolutely not. Some people need to fix lifestyle first. Some people need to address thyroid issues. Some people need to address trauma and emotional eating. Some people need to address sleep apnea. Some people need to address cortisol. And some people might not tolerate GLP-1 drugs at all. But for people who truly struggle with metabolic dysfunction, Retatrutide may become one of the most powerful tools we have. Now, let's talk about one of the most important topics: plateaus. Because people always ask what happens when it stops working. Plateaus are normal, even on strong compounds.
Because your body adapts.
Your metabolism adjusts. Your calories drop. Your activity might drop without you realizing it. Your NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, can decrease. That means you might move less without even noticing. You might fidget less. You might walk less. You might sit more. So even though you are eating less, your body is burning less. And the scale stops. That is why people need to stay active. They need to track protein. They need to keep lifting. They need to keep walking. They need to keep water intake high. They need to keep electrolytes balanced. And sometimes, they need to cycle their dosing or adjust their plan with the provider. Now, let's talk about the biggest mistakes people make with Retatrutide.
Mistake number 1.
Starting too high. Mistake number 2. Increasing too fast. Mistake number 3. Not eating enough protein. Mistake number 4. Not drinking enough water. Mistake number 5. Not taking electrolytes. Mistake number 6. Not strength training. Mistake number 7. Ignoring constipation until it becomes a full-blown nightmare. Mistake number 8. Thinking the drug will do all the work. Mistake number 9. Not monitoring labs. And mistake number 10. Not having an exit plan. Because eventually, whether it is cost, side effects, or simply reaching goal weight, people come off these compounds. And if you come off without a plan, appetite comes roaring back. And if your lifestyle has not changed, regain can happen fast. So if someone uses Retatrutide, they should also be building the habits that will keep the results. Now, let's talk about constipation, because this is one of the most common complaints. GLP-1 compounds slow digestion. That is part of how they work. Food stays in the stomach longer. The intestines move slower. So constipation can happen. And if someone is eating less fiber and drinking less water, it gets worse. Some people will go days without a bowel movement. That is not normal. That is not healthy. So magnesium, hydration, fiber, walking, and gut support become important. Some people also use things like stool softeners or gentle laxatives, but that should be discussed with the provider. Now, let's talk about nausea. Nausea is usually dose-related. If someone titrates slowly, nausea is often manageable. If someone jumps doses, nausea can be brutal. Eating smaller meals helps. Avoiding greasy foods helps. Avoiding large meals helps. And sometimes, ginger, peppermint, or anti-nausea medications may be needed. Now, let's talk about alcohol. Many people report a reduced desire for alcohol on GLP-1 drugs. This is fascinating, because GLP-1 receptors are also involved in reward pathways in the brain. So some people lose interest in drinking. Some people lose interest in smoking. Some people lose interest in binge eating. This is why GLP-1 drugs are being studied for addiction. And Retatrutide may have similar effects. Now, let's talk about Retatrutide and body composition. One of the reasons people like Retatrutide is because it may produce more fat loss relative to total weight loss, possibly due to the glucagon component increasing energy expenditure. Now, we still need more data, but in theory, that is one of its biggest advantages. Because losing weight is one thing, but losing fat while maintaining muscle is the holy grail. Now, let's talk about the future. Retatrutide is likely part of a new generation of anti-obesity medications. We will probably see more triple agonists. We will probably see even more complex combinations. Quadruple agonists. Dual plus amylin. GLP-1 plus glucagon plus other metabolic peptides. The pharmaceutical world is racing toward the ultimate metabolic drug. And while some people see that as scary, I see it as a tool. Because obesity is killing people. Diabetes is killing people. Heart disease is killing people. And metabolic syndrome is becoming the new normal. So having tools that help people regain control is not a bad thing. But it must be done responsibly. Now let's address the hype. Is Retatrutide better than Tirzepatide? In terms of weight loss potential, it may be. In terms of appetite suppression, it may be stronger. In terms of fat loss, it may be more aggressive. But better is not always better. Because if someone cannot tolerate it, it does not matter. If someone loses weight too fast and loses muscle, it does not matter. If someone feels miserable, it does not matter. So the best compound is the one that fits the person. The one they can tolerate. The one they can sustain. And the one that supports their long-term health. Now, let's talk about the mindset. If you are using Retatrutide, you need to treat it like a research protocol, not a party trick. You need to track your food. You need to track your weight. You need to track your measurements. You need to track your strength. You need to track your sleep. You need to track your digestion. And you need to track your mental health. Because if you do not measure, you cannot manage. Now, some people ask, how long can you stay on Retatrutide? In clinical studies, people are followed for months. But obesity is a chronic condition. So long-term use may be needed for some people. Just like blood pressure medication. Just like thyroid medication. Just like antidepressants. Some people may need ongoing metabolic support. Others may use it temporarily to reset their system and build habits. Now, let's talk about Retatrutide and rebound weight gain. If someone stops abruptly, appetite often increases. And it can feel intense. That is because your body's hunger hormones and satiety hormones shift. So a gradual taper, lifestyle reinforcement, and continued protein and exercise are critical. This is where many people fail. They think they can stop and just keep eating the same way. But the drug was helping regulate appetite and insulin. So without it, the old patterns return. This is why the lifestyle piece matters. Now, if you are listening and you are thinking, okay, this sounds amazing but also kind of scary, that is the correct response. Because Retatrutide is powerful. It is exciting. It is promising. But it is not casual. And it is not something to use without education. Now, let's do a quick recap. Retatrutide is a triple agonist. It targets GLP-1, GP, and glucagon receptors. This may result in appetite suppression, improved insulin sensitivity, improved glucose control, and increased energy expenditure. It has shown impressive weight loss outcomes in early research. But it also carries side effects, especially gastrointestinal side effects. And because it is not fully approved yet, long-term safety data is still being collected. If someone uses it, they need to prioritize protein, hydration, electrolytes, resistance training, and lab monitoring. They also need a plan for maintenance and, eventually, a plan for coming off if that is the goal. Now, I want to end with a realistic message. There is no magic peptide that replaces discipline. But there are peptides and compounds that can make discipline possible. That is the difference. Some people are fighting their biology every single day. They are starving, exhausted, inflamed, insulin-resistant, and battling cravings non-stop. And when that is your reality, motivation is not enough. So compounds like Retatrutide may give people the ability to finally work with their body instead of against it. But it still requires responsibility. It still requires education. And it still requires self-awareness. Because your goal is not just to lose weight. Your goal is to become healthier, stronger, and more resilient. And if you do it right, the weight loss is just the side effect of a better metabolism. This podcast episode is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a doctor and I am not giving medical advice. Retatrutide and similar compounds are still being researched and may not be approved for human use in many settings. Always consult a licensed healthcare professional before using any peptide, research compound, or medication. Never self-diagnose or self-treat. If you experience severe side effects such as vomiting, dehydration, severe abdominal pain, chest pain, fainting, or signs of allergic reaction, seek medical attention immediately. Thanks for listening, keep learning, and stay curious.